Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Good morning, Chapel Choir. Good morning, Collegium. Good morning, all. Thank you very much. This morning is the last of our series this year, which has been dedicated to the cantatas that Bach wrote in his second year in Leipzig. This is the famous chorale cantata cycle, in which Bach was instructed by his bosses, at the church, that he needed to base the chorales more on chorale tunes and use those as his departing and unifying device. And what then happened is this extraordinary sequence, a year of cantatas that marvelously display the Lutheran hymn tunes from the ages and really set a precedent for the high mark for this kind of composition. Mendelssohn would do a bunch of these pieces, couple of hundred years later, and they're fantastic, but they're absolutely in the mold of Bach. So these really represent a zenith of a style, and they're to be celebrated. This is is it 300th year? Is that right? I think it's the 300th year anniversary of that cycle. Now, our cantata today, 137, is not in that cycle. It is a chorale cantata in that it celebrates the hymn tune, the chorale, almost as much as its meaning, but it dates actually from the beginning of the third cycle in August of 1726, which is the beginning of the third cycle. We don't know what piece was on that previous Sunday in the second cycle. So it's possible that Bach, coming to this Sunday again, decided I should write another chorale cantata just to complete that cycle, so I have one in that slot for that day. So for the chorale that he chose, it's probably one of the most famous hymns that still exists, Joachim Neander's Praise to the Lord the Almighty, which in the Methodist hymnal is 139, in the red hymnal in front of you. It was Friedrich Wilhelm III's favorite hymn of all time, and it has been published in something like 177 hymnals in probably about as many languages. It is a beloved hymn, and this is remarkable because it is a German chorale tune. So it had to come into the Anglosphere at some point, and it's at least as popular here in the Anglosphere as it is in German-speaking lands. Neander set 5 verses, and each of these 5 verses invite us, all humanity, all that hath life and breath, to praise ye the Lord. Praise the Lord for all the glorious and wonderful things that God has done. In the second half of each of these verses, there is a reminder or an enjoinder to mark God's grace, his friendship, his example, his guidance in time of woe. And at the end, we are reminded of the most important text, ist dein Licht. He is your light. Soul, don't forget this. Vergesst es ja nicht. Don't forget this. This is the most important thing. Ist dein Licht. He is your light, the light through whom we see light. That's in the final verse. In the first verse, Bach changed one word, and that's in the first verse. Let's see. If you have your bulletin, or do you have bulletins?
Tim just went down.
Okay, Tim's bringing you bulletins. But the first verse is, Lobe den Herrn, den mächtigen König der Ehren. A mächtigen König is a mighty king of honor. Meine geliebte Seele, das ist mein Begehren. And then we get to this, Kommet zuhauf, Psalter und Harfen, wach auf. This is, come join the big crowd, psaltery and harps, wake up, awake, wach auf. Lasset die Musikam hören. Now, we sing in the hymnal and in other German translations, Lasset die Lobgesang. Let the hymn of praise. And here Bach says, Musikam. He changes this. I don't know of any other hymnal or instance where it says die Musikam instead of den Lobgesang. So a hymn of praise becomes Musikam, basically as if to say, everybody who can hit something, blow something, strike something, it's all for the praise of God. Let it all be heard. Not just hymns of praise, but all music. Let all music resound for the glory of God. So let's look at these 5 movements, and I think what I'd like to do, one more thing, important thing. Bach changed the melody of the chorale tune. Justin, can I implore your assistance? We know that the hymn book plays the melody in this way. Right? You know this, so sing that with me. Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation. Exactly right. Okay, now Bach changes one little bit. When you go down, dee, dee, da, 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 he changes this.
The part is the
There's a leap, and then a nice little ornamentation that the sopranos get to sing. Now, we don't even hardly notice it without having it pointed out, but it is a decided change in the melody, change of contour, there's a leap. And sopranos, could you sing it for us? Which are you at the beginning?
This is real key. It's the chorale.
The chorale, number 5. 1, 2. All right, so you get the idea. And the sopranos will sing, you'll hear that. You can have a seat, thank you very much. You'll hear the sopranos sing that tune in the final movement, the chorale, and they'll sing the same material in a much more fantastic, beautifully dressed out first movement. So the sopranos have the melody in the first and the 5th movement. The other verses of Neander are set by Bach in 3 distinct ways. And I'll work maybe from the outside in. So number 2 is an aria for alto. Come on down, we can't. And the obbligato instrument is a violin. So we have solo singer and a solo instrumental line with continuo. This is the same arrangement for number 4. There's a solo singer, solo trumpet, plus continuo. Continuo has a special function in that, but this is the same kind of idea. In this movement, number 2, the chorale tune is in the singer's part. So Wikiat will sing very clearly and beautifully in outlining the chorale tune. And we'll see what happens when we get to number 4 in a moment. But this material takes up the joyous strain of the opening movement, which we haven't heard yet, but you will in a moment. Takes up that beautiful, joyous music with music that I think Bach is trying to depict the eagle's wings aloft. God's grace, God carries us, His guidance. We ride on His guidance just as the great eagle's wings. And so there's a span invoked, there's an agility, there's a fleetness invoked, and all of that is in Susanna's right and left hands in all. And Bach liked this music so much that he then rearranged it to be in the Schubler chorales, the organ chorales. So if any organists are listening, you'll recognize this music. Should we do a little bit? It's, the aria proceeds like that. It's beautiful, you guys. Thank you very, very much. There's an odd thing, and Susanna and I haven't really talked about this very much, but the aria is in 3, but it very much sounds like it's in 2. The way it's grouped at the beginning, we would maybe have a discussion about that at another time. Anyway, so I'm going to skip the middle movement and go to the companion of number 2, which is number 4. And this is an aria for Patrick Waters, solo tenor, and solo trumpet. Robinson is playing beautiful trumpet today. How many trumpets are you playing today? Just one? Just one, okay. All right. What's interesting here is that the obligato instrument is the roles are swapped. So Robinson has the chorale tune instead of the singer, and Patrick has a much more ornate line around this. Now, look at the text for number 4. Praise the Lord who surely blesses your condition, who from heaven rains down streams of love. Consider this, what the Almighty can do, who comes to meet you with love. Now, I'm not sure what Bach is doing with the continuo part, but you'll hear Rebecca and Justin play descending scales. And those scales are offset by broken eighth notes, that kind of figuration. And to my wondering, I wonder if this is Bach, this is the rain of love coming down from heaven. I don't know, but one has to wonder about that. The image of rain was used by Martin Luther, importantly, as a metaphor for our relationship with God's grace. And Luther, we learned this in staff meeting a year or two ago. Luther wrote that just as rain falls from the heavens to the earth doesn't send up a note and say, we'd like some rain now, please, or we need it. Rain happens whether the earth wants it or not. And rain nourishes and supplies life-sustaining nourishment to all living creatures on the earth, unbeknownst to the rain. And so, in the same way, God's grace flows freely to us each day, each morning, each night, whether we want it or not, whether we accept it or not, it's there for the taking. And whether we know it or not, it nourishes us and watches over us. This is the metaphor that Luther used to describe our relationship to grace. And so I think the idea of rain is important for this particular movement. Shall we do a little bit? And I got the tempo wrong earlier, so I'm going to see if I can get this a little better. Right. Brilliant. Is that closer? Great. Okay. Thanks very much. Brilliant. Okay, so those are the outer movements, 2 and 4. And now we come to the central movement, which has the least obvious statement of the chorale tune in it. But let's look at the text and see what Bach might be thinking of. Thanks, Susanna. Praise the Lord who prepares you wisely and well, who bestows health and accompanies you as a friend. In how much suffering has not the gracious God spread his wings over you? So here, the accompanying you as a friend is an image of a duet. And so Bach writes the only duet in the cantata, and it's for soprano and bass. And then for the obligato instruments, he also chooses a pair, and that's the 2 oboes. And you will hear dialogue in these respective parts between the singers and between the players. Their parts are similar. And so they enter into a dialogue with one another, and there's repetition, there's imitation, there's following, there's amending. There are all of the elements of a conversation, of a fluid, working, beautiful arrangement. This, of course, is accompanied by continuo, but not by cello. We're having Dominic play bassoon and Pablo on double bass with Justin for this aria. Let's do the very beginning, and then I want to go to the in V fill note. Okay, here's the beginning of this. So you hear the imitation and the way in which they both work together. At the end there, you'll hear the bass sustains a long note. The soprano has lots of agile flourishing around that, and then vice versa. So they work in tandem with one another. Toward the end of the movement, there is a text in V fill note, and note, N-O-T, capital N-O-T, is the word for suffering. So in V fill note, in so much suffering, and for that particular passage, Bach uses a Baroque device, a melodic device, and it uses chromaticism. So you'll hear the singers do note, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but within the context of this particular harmony, those ascending leaps give a sound to the suffering, give the sound to the difficulty of life. That cranking up that happens with the chromaticism on the word note. So why don't we begin, could we do, let's do 49. 40, this is 4 before your first, and then at oboes, just play the first 4 bars, and then we'll have the singers and continuo after that. So here's 49. 1, 2, Okay, it's an odd sound that all of a sudden, with all of this wonderful counterpoint that exists around this, to have this ironed out chromatic motion is, it's as if things just grind to a halt. And I can't help but recall that not long before writing this piece, Bach was spending a lot of time with a piece called the St. John Passion. And in that piece, one of the 2 soprano arias is Zerfließe, meine Herze. And in this Zerfließe, the soprano sings Tod, which rhymes with note, but death, in this instance, Tod, Tod, has this sort of a chromatic element with an inflection of a vibrato on it. It's an odd marking that I don't know of other places. But here's an instance where Bach is using a Baroque device to really give an aura and give a sound to a human condition. Okay, thank you very much. We come now to the first movement, the triumphal first movement. which displays all of the Easter festival forces. And typically, at this point, I get to talk about Bach the orchestrator. And we don't use that term with Bach very much, but you have to remember that Bach is an organist, and he sits at the bench and he draws this stop and he draws this stop and he says, no, this one. He's thinking about sound combinations, and he would travel around to different churches and evaluate and assess their instruments, and he would, sort of play with certain sounds, and he was accustomed to drawing, let's say these two 8-foot stops, let's have those together, or let's try these in combination. So when he set to the orchestra, he does something similarly creative, inventive, and nonconformist. So most of the textures in the Baroque orchestra are threefold. There are two treble parts and a continual part. But with Bach, he can hear many different levels at once. So let's break this apart a little bit, as we did the other night. And I'd like to just have, how about, we're going to build this from the bottom up. So continuo, let's start with you guys, and then we'll add on as we did the other night. If you want to sit until your time has come. Thanks for your forbearance about this. Okay, continuo, from the top. That's the opening ritornello, the opening introduction before the choir comes in. Now, let's add to that the good old violas. Violas, you'll see they will play occasionally with the continuo, but then they'll have an independent line that means that they're playing with their upper neighbors, so the lower neighbors. So you have to go all the way around. With violas, 2, 1. You get the idea. Now let's add all of the strings in. And from the beginning, you'll hear a wonderful interplay now. 2, 1. Now, oboes join us, and now you might have detected sort of two thematic or two melodic cells that are predominant in this music. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, as the violins play in unison, but you'll hear that the oboes play opposite that. So these two themes work in tandem. All together? Okay, and that could be just great. We could be very happy with that. Great job, oboes, that's really beautiful. But, come on, Easter bonnet. A wonderful festival orchestration with 3 trumpets and timpani. And let's continue through the first choral entrance, and we'll go through the first cadence, and that will bring us to our time. Thank you very much. See you downstairs for breakfast and at the service. fantastic and a wonderful celebration of Neander's absolutely brilliant 1680 tune and chorale, Lobet den Herren. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you all. See you at breakfast and at the service. Thank you, everybody.